Hey guys, it's Sasha. As the stock market continues to go down, I wanted to talk about some of the reasons why it's happening and where this could be going. Because yesterday, the market had a green day, and suddenly every finance influencer Twitter is all telling you that this is the bottom. The next 10 days, the market is going to have the best gains ever. You need to buy stocks right now because this is the dip. It's the end of the dip. And we're just 3 weeks into this most recent stock market downturn. Now, let's talk about what is actually happening. As I'm recording this video, there are new tariffs in place in the United States. 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and a new 10% tariff on China, which adds to the 10% duty on China, which came in last month. So China is effectively under a 20% tariff if you add those two up. But if you're watching this video later on in the day, maybe at the weekend or even next week, the situation might be completely different, because Trump might get on the phone with the leaders of some of these countries and thrash out some kind of a deal again. And then he might cancel the tariffs with 1 hour's notice. And then 3 weeks later, he might go and slap even bigger tariffs again because he's changed his mind. Just this morning, 2 days after the tariffs came in, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has said that maybe they are going to pause tariffs on car imports from Mexico and Canada because they realize that a quarter of the cars sold in the United States are made in those two countries. And a 25% tariff on those cars is going to hurt American car companies, and they are reportedly weighing exemptions for some agricultural goods from the tariffs on Mexico and Canada as well. So just after introducing these tariffs, they are now thinking about maybe undoing it, maybe making some exceptions for some of the biggest industries involved in the trade between these three countries. It's almost like maybe these tariffs weren't fully thought through in the first place. At the moment, this is all a maybe. And companies have not yet started raising prices, precisely because everybody is waiting to see how the tariff war actually plays out. But in theory, if the tariffs are here to stay, then your Apple iPhones and MacBooks are going to get a lot more expensive, along with everything else. At the moment, companies like Apple are in a bit of a pickle. If you go and import iPhones from China into the United States today, you have to pay the 20% tariff. But if you wait a week, maybe the tariff will be gone, right? Maybe you don't have to pay it then. So maybe it's better to wait and see. Big companies like Apple have enough stock to manage this issue in the short term, but smaller retailers, small businesses will not be in the same position. Their cargo was probably loaded onto ships back in China 8 weeks ago, but before Trump even became president, and that cargo ship is arriving in the US port today or tomorrow. And the containers of that small business will be unloaded, will cross the border, will go through customs, and the tariff will be due. And whether you like it or not, the tariffs are in place right now. So you are going to be 20% out of pocket. And this is going to be very difficult for small companies to stomach. It's definitely not going to help small companies in the short term because planning for these wild pricing swings is impossible. And that in itself, this issue is really important. It's a very important data point. The unpredictability, the lack of ability to plan, the lack of ability to make any sound business decisions because you don't know what's going to be happening day to day. One reason why the US stock market is selling off is not because people are certain of a negative outlook, but because nobody is certain of anything. The uncertainty itself is a very big problem for business. If the tariff situation continues for a few weeks, big companies like Apple are going to have to start importing products and paying that extra 20%. And what do they do then? Well, Apple has a pre-tax profit margin of over 30%, so they could swallow some of the tariff impact. And we may well see some of that happening. But the issue there is that this will immediately reflect in the quarterly results in the future, where the profit margins are going to suffer. And that's going to spook investors when they see the numbers printed on paper, and it sure will not help the stock market. Alternatively, Apple could choose to go and increase prices, right? To go and add the tariffs in. Maybe they'll increase prices by the full 20%. Maybe they'll do a bit of absorbing and a bit of price increases. And if they do increase prices by the full 20%, then the new MacBook Air that today costs $999 will cost $1,200 instead. And obviously that's going to affect demand because a lot fewer people will want to buy the same product that now suddenly costs 20% more. Not just because it is more expensive. Now that is an issue, right? That is a big issue, but because consumers will also be sitting around waiting to see what happens with these tariffs in case they are cancelled again. And that second effect, people delaying their purchases because they are not urgent or necessary or absolutely compulsory, right? And waiting, that could have an even worse effect than the price increase itself on demand. And when demand does drop, that will also be pretty bad for the next quarterly results, obviously, and that will be bad for the stock. So whichever route companies choose to take with these tariffs, the answer in the short term is that it's going to screw the stock market. And if the tariffs are cancelled or significantly reduced, watered down again, that's only going to add to the uncertainty. 2 weeks ago, Apple announced that they will be spending more than $500 billion in the United States in the next 4 years. And that sounds huge, but it's not $500 billion incremental, right? It is the total, including all the stuff they would already be spending, and they are spending a lot of money in the US already, and it is over 4 years. But still, they said that they will be expanding their facilities in Michigan, Texas, California, Arizona, Nevada, Iowa, Oregon, North Carolina, and Washington. And they will be building a new factory in Texas. Then a few days ago, TSMC announced that they will invest $100 billion into US manufacturing, and they will be building 2 additional semiconductor facilities in Arizona, creating thousands of jobs. Now, TSMC is a hugely important company that many people have never heard of because TSMC is the company that actually manufactures the chips for most of the world's leading tech companies. Apple Silicon is manufactured by TSMC. Nvidia graphics cards are manufactured by TSMC, and so on and so on. So everybody is announcing these huge investments into the US, which in the long term is probably going to be a good thing. This is why Trump is doing tariffs in the first place, right? But announcing an investment is a very long way from a fully built and operational factory. We're talking years. So we're not going to see any actual benefit from all of this investment, maybe for a couple of years at least. Just companies sinking hundreds of billions of dollars into the property, plant, and equipment line in the cash flow statements. At the joint session of Congress 2 days ago, Trump said that the American dream is unstoppable. But he also said that his tariff policies are likely to cause short-term pain in the stock market. So he is very much aware of the impact of tariffs on the stock market, and he is prepared to take some of that pain. Because Trump is now serving his second term, and because of his relatively unusual status within the Republican Party, he probably doesn't care too much about what the stock market downturn in the short term will do to opinion polls. The downside, of course, is that if the downturn becomes a full-on stock market crash, the midterms could swing the other way and block the ability of Trump to pass legislation in the second 2 years of the presidency. Having said that, I am not actually sure what the Congress and Senate are actually doing at the moment and have been doing for the last 2 months, because it seems that every single action that Trump takes happens by way of these presidential orders, so maybe it doesn't even matter who exactly controls the Congress or the Senate. I'm not a politician. I don't like politics. By the way, my investing course is on sale at the moment. You can get 10% off by using the code SPRING2025 at the checkout. One word. Go to the link in the description or in the pinned comment. And I know a lot of you tried to go and buy the course after the last video because I saw the data, but I managed to break the registration process with a bad website update, so none of you were able to sign up. Sorry about that. I am a one-man team. I coded up the entire course software and the website, etc. I have now fixed it, so if any of you do want to use the discount, it should now work just fine. Apologies. So, I know a lot of people are declaring victory every time there is a green day or a slight rebound. At the end of the trading day, the graph went up slightly. But the issue with these tariffs is that it could go on for quite a bit longer, because we are in the last month of Q1 already, and realistically the impact of these tariffs is probably not going to hit all that hard in this quarter. They only came in at the beginning of March, and if the tariffs are here to stay, well then Q2 and Q3 are definitely going to begin feeling some of that pain. And we will have to wait for the earnings calls in July and August for Q2, and then again in October and November for Q3. And we got to see what the other countries do in terms of reciprocal tariffs and how that impacts American companies as well. And it will be only then, in a few months' time, that we'll actually begin seeing the real impact in the numbers. I know that the whole tariff thing will probably change, do U-turns 10 times before we get there. I am aware. But we are seeing other countries get progressively more pissed off about all of this. China seems pretty pissed off. President Macron in France seems livid. Trudeau in Canada is really not happy.
This is a very dumb thing to do.
And the thing is, it's not just the leaders of those countries that are unhappy. A lot of the regular people living in those countries are not very happy either, because from the perspective of people who live outside the United States, the things happening right now look a lot like a typical main character syndrome. When you think that your country is far superior to everybody else. Everybody else in the world is either an NPC or an idiot or both. All of them suck big time. You can do whatever you want, and everybody else just has to take it. They have to bend over and take it like you give it to them. That's the vibe that people are feeling towards the US right now. And on top of the issues with tariffs, that may well transpire into lower demand for US products and services. We'll have to see if that happens, but it's very possible. And if that lower demand then multiplies by the issues that we talked about earlier within the US stock market could be in for a very serious correction. Remember, a lot of the big tech stocks are priced for perfection. If that perfection does not arrive, well, we're going to have issues. We'll have to see what happens. Remember, you can get 10% off my course. Go and check out the link below. Thank you so much, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.